Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's 1 Million by 1 Million Strategy Roundtable for Entrepreneurs. 1M1M, as you know, is the first and only global virtual incubator accelerator in the world. And we are headquartered in Silicon Valley, but work all over the world, every corner, wherever you are dialing from, welcome. Our mission is to help 1 million entrepreneurs reach $1 million and beyond in annual revenue. And that means that we are here only because with the mission of helping you become successful. If you are not successful, we are not going to be successful in achieving our mission at all. This is our 242nd roundtable. So this is going on for a while. We are here almost every Thursday, just except for a few holidays during the course of the year. We are pretty routinely here on Thursday mornings, 8 a.m. Pacific time. You will have a recording available on the blog as well as on our YouTube channel. Our Twitter channels are at 1M by 1M, and mine is at Romana. We do provide a lot of very good content through the Twitter channel and all our social media channels. If you're live tweeting the show today, please use hashtag 1M1M. This 1M1M Roundtables is our YouTube channel where you'll find recording of all prior sessions. In fact, almost every session this fall we've had a guest and has been 30 minutes of talk show followed by another hour of mentoring. So the content is very interesting, and in general there's a tremendous number of recordings available on the YouTube channel. So if you want to dig around those, you're welcome to do that. These are the call-in instructions. We're not quite ready for calling in, for you to call in yet. We are first going to have a conversation with Dave, but I will put this slide up later when we are ready for your calls. So as you know, the programming we've been doing this fall is to celebrate a series of books that we have released this fall. One is From E-Commerce to Web 3.0 that was released in September. In October, we released Carnival in the Cloud, and in November, we released Bootstrapping with a Paycheck. So it's been a very active fall for us, and the launch event has been sprinkled all around the last few months. And today, we're actually doing Carnival in the Cloud, and we're going to talk to Dave Hornik from August Capital, who is a very experienced investor in general in the industry and also has had some very nice successes in the cloud. So welcome, Dave. It's great to have you. I have this memory of, almost 10 years ago when nobody was blogging and you were blogging.
It's true. I was actually the very first venture capitalist to blog, so it's now more than a decade ago. So I have to admit I've slowed down pretty dramatically. I get on these airplane flights and it's like I should really write something. And I think I've written it all. I should just point to things I've written in the past. So.
Yeah, and folks, those of you who are listening, we're talking about a time, 10 years ago. It's probably very difficult for you to envision today. Venture capitalists were these rarefied species that would not talk to anybody. So you cannot imagine how revolutionary the step that Dave took was to actually be so available and so in the face through the blogging platform.
Yeah, it was considered crazy. It was considered crazy, and hey, this is a black box. Don't tell people what we're doing. And I was like sitting in the black box thinking, really, there's nothing much to see in here, so I might as well let you know.
So what, you've been around, obviously. We've all been around for a little while, and it seems like deja vu again. What's happening? What is your read of the industry? What is your investment thesis? What are you thinking right now?
It's funny. To my mind, everything that changes is back to where we started before. So, yeah, what's new right now is that the markets are really great and people are making a lot of money. And so it's like, oh, my goodness, this venture business is a great business. The only problem with that is the things that are great started 7 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, right? So, oh, what a great business. Well, only if you were investing in amazing companies 7 years ago do you get to now take them public and have and have people see that that there's a huge opportunity. So here at August Capital, we sort of take the same view always, which is great entrepreneurs build great businesses. We look for people who are working on things that have the capacity to make a big change, whatever that may be. It may be, you know, we were the first investors in a company called Atheros when there was no such thing as Wi-Fi. And Atheros built a Wi-Fi chip and created the standard that then allowed us to carry our laptops around the house without having a wire. Incredibly transformative, but when we funded the company, it was a science project. And that's true of all sorts of companies where we've invested early with entrepreneurs who have big ideas. My partner, Howard Hartenbaum, was the first investor in Skype when they were just writing the business plan and thinking about peer-to-peer communications. You know, my partner, Eric Carlborg, most recently was an early investor in a company called Zulily, which is a children's clothing and store. It's an amazing company, but the bigger point was, how do you get direct to the moms and grandmas who are really the ones engaged in the buying of these great products? How do you get them excited on a daily basis? That company went from $0 million to $1 billion faster than any company that we have backed before. And that includes my partner, Dave Marquardt, being the first and only investor in Microsoft. So the world is faster today, which is amazing and exciting, but it still requires you to build a business that's doing something great, right? You can't, there are no tricks, and we're not looking for tricks. We're looking for great people who are building businesses that solve real problems today and will create value as a result.
So double click down on that a bit for us and tell us some, you know, thoughts that, share some thoughts that are, you know, maybe sector specific, or where do you think, what are some pointers to areas where you are either seeing those kinds of opportunities now, you know, now that is going to get started and 7 years later maybe go public, where are the new opportunities?
Well, so I guess the short answer is I don't know, and I don't think I'll ever know. That's not my job. I think that the venture investors who think they know what the answer is are either doing it really wrong or they're wrong. If they're doing it really wrong, if they actually know they should start those companies, there's way more money to be made being Mark Zuckerberg than it is someone funding Mark Zuckerberg. So if you know what the answer is, then feel free, go build that company. Otherwise, you're full of it. You don't know what, you know, we meet with, you know, I hear 1,000 pitches in any given year. I receive 1,000 plans in any given year. And they're really varied. You know, it's someone who's working on a cloud service to solve an HR problem, and then someone who's building a consumer experience to bring, you know, 3D VR to your face, and another company that's solving a payroll problem, and another company that's figuring out how to deal with, you know, cement manufacture, right? There's no circumstance in which I sit down on January 1st and say, oh, you know what we need to fund? We need to fund a company that's going to remove wires from laptop computers so that we can check our email in the bathroom. Like, no one woke up the year that Atheros got started and said, that's the opportunity. But when these professors came to our office and said, you know what? RF technology has changed to the point where we can move data through the air with the sufficient efficiency that we can get rid of wires, we said, wow, is that even possible? And the answer was, well, maybe, you know, and so we engaged. So I don't think it's the job of venture investors to say, I think these opportunities exist. I think it is our job to have a broad view of the world, to meet with amazing entrepreneurs who tell us what they are passionate about, and then say, oh yeah, that's amazing, we should have thought of that.
Okay, let me turn the question around and say that if somebody came to you with an idea, give us some insight into your process of how you analyze the idea, how you frame the idea, and how you decide why this is a good opportunity. And we can do some of your investments that have turned out really well, but when they came to you, that was not at all obvious. So what was the thinking hat that you put on to analyze and assess those?
Well, the first piece of that is always, is this a person with whom I'd like to work? Are these a group of people who I think are thinking differently and deeply, who are truly engaged in what they're building, right? And again, this is across a range of opportunities. So I've now been working with an entrepreneur named Rene Lacerte for 14 years.
No, Rene, very well.
And he's a great guy. I met him when he was funding his first business. He had just left Intuit. He was building a payroll business, an online payroll business, before anyone had thought to bring any of these, kind of financial services businesses online. And he had pitched dozens of venture investors. And when I met with him, I said, you know what, this guy, we always joke about it, that you're looking for expertise. You're looking for a certain amount of understanding of a market when you're going to fund someone. Rene had more understanding of the payroll market than anyone else who would have been starting this business. His parents ran a payroll company. His uncle had sold a payroll business to Intuit. He had run payroll at Intuit. This guy was Mr. Payroll. So you have the market, like, oh man, this guy really understands payroll. Now, do I care? Is he going to build a big, interesting business? The way you find that out is really just engaging in a conversation. So Rene and I had a lot of great conversations where he talked about how he was thinking about payroll and how his parents had built their business and why Intuit wasn't doing this and why he thought there was an opportunity. All of these things. Where did he grow up, and where did he go to school, and how did he make the choices he made? And through all of this, I came to the conclusion that Rene was incredibly smart. He was very thoughtful. He knew the market and understood what he was trying to build, that there was a window of opportunity here that nobody was taking, including Intuit. I spoke with all sorts of people who knew him, so I knew that he was an extraordinarily honest and decent human being. So now through that process, I am 90% of the way there. The last 10% is, so is this a good idea? That's great. You're an amazing entrepreneur. I'm excited about working with you. And for me, that, like I say, is 90% of the battle. Now, what about that last 10%? Is there an opportunity? Can you build a big business here? Will Intuit let them build a business? Will, the classic payroll providers do something to compete, et cetera? And we ultimately decided there was a big opportunity. We were excited about it. We invested in the company. It was actually my very first venture investment. And we ultimately sold it to Intuit for a couple $100 million, and it's been a very successful business for Intuit. They tried to compete, they couldn't. Then Rene says, oh, I'm going to start another business. It's called Bill.com, and I say, great, here's money. You're a great entrepreneur. I know it. I've worked with you. I'm excited and you're onto this. How do you take financial services business, bring them online? So that's just a microcosm of my processes. You sit down with people. You determine whether you feel like they have a real understanding of what they're building. You figure out whether they're motivated by the right sets of things. And I'll tell you what, for me, the motivation isn't I am going to get rich. Maybe you are. Maybe the byproduct is that this worked out and you do a fantastic job. To my mind, great entrepreneurs do not start businesses because they searched around for the thing that will make them rich. Great entrepreneurs care about solving problems, and they have come to a problem that they want to fix for whatever reason. And when you find those people who are engaged and excited, then you want to spend the next 10 years with them, or in Rene's case, 14. And going into 15 years with Rene Lacerte, which I am very excited about. I'm excited about 2 decades of Rene Lacerte.
So folks, those of you who are interested in learning more about Rene, actually we have profiled both his companies in the Entrepreneur Journey series, and at least one of them is in one of the Entrepreneur Journey's books. So PayCycle is, the interview is with Jim Heger, who went on to run PayCycle eventually, who's also a very good friend of mine. Both of them
I love Jim Heger. Couldn't be a bigger fan of Jim Heger.
Yeah. So Jim eventually scaled PayCycle and sold it to Intuit. And by that point, Rene had already started Bill.com. Bill.com is also a case study. It's not one of the books, but it is in the case study portfolio. So you were welcome to look at it. And really, these are fantastic entrepreneurs. So Dave, question on what you said. Domain knowledge is a big part of your process, yes?
It's a part. You know what? I funded, there are two founders in a company that called WePay that I funded. And I wrote a blog post on Venture Blog about this. And the blog post basically is talking about how do you get credibility if you have none, right? If you're a 20-something-year-old person who's building a business in a very challenging marketplace and you're not coming out of that universe. So Renee had amazing domain experience, and that's great. Bill Clerico, Rich Aberman, who started WePay, they didn't come out of the financial services world in any meaningful way, but they were incredibly smart entrepreneurs. So to me, then the conversation with them about what they were building was extremely important. And the thing that was interesting is when you asked them questions about how they were thinking about their business, they had very smart answers. They were very thoughtful. They understood the whole landscape. They had put what they were building in the context of that landscape, and they were thinking about it and changing how they were thinking based on the input they were receiving from the market every day. And so even though these guys did not go into this business with extreme domain expertise, I was excited about funding them because they were great entrepreneurs and they had taken the time to make themselves experts. So you don't need to be an expert going in, but by the time you get to me, you better be an expert. You better know your industry as well as anyone I ever talk to. You better have a point of view. You better know what you don't know. There's no worse thing to tell me than an answer that you don't know, right? It is never smart to, when you don't know the answer, to make something up or guess or whatever. Great entrepreneurs say, I don't know the answer to that, but here's what I do know and here's what I think it will do. And by doing that, you say, oh, okay, this person is thoughtful, they understand all of the inputs around them, and they're going to make good choices as they go and build this business.
And sometimes it's actually good to have people from outside of the domain because they bring in fresh perspective. People from, deeply seeping in that domain may not be able to think a new way of doing things.
Yeah.
All right, so what is your view of we've talked a little bit about clouds in the context of payroll, and one of we've had several discussions on cloud here, and some of the people we've talked to believe that there is still a lot of opportunity, especially in that segment that PayCycle went after, which is the very small business world, to bring more various kinds of cloud services to that world. That seems to be a world that it still has, there are a lot of places where a lot of types of services that can be brought to it. And my own thesis also is that, we're going through this evolution of modular businesses, right? We're outsourcing everything right now. And it's become possible to outsource everything. So you'd not only buy cloud services as in technology, you could also buy cloud services that come with resources, people, right? Mm-hmm. And that allows you to kind of modularly piece together a business, all the non-core functions of the business, and you only focus on the core, and those companies are coming together at a fantastic pace right now. So anything that aligns with that general thesis, I believe, are going to create interesting, scalable business opportunities. Now, if we look a little bit, I know you invest not only in cloud, but across the spectrum. So if we look at outside of the cloud, at the cusp of cloud and mobile, especially this whole app economy with the geo-targeting capabilities and all that, that seems to be a very huge area of interest. However, I'll tell you, I am not impressed with Uber of massage and Uber of laundry. This just seems like, we've been there, done that kind of things. What is your sense?
Well, the thing that's interesting about it, so, first of all, I think the tricky part of the app economy is that there are very few apps that have become big, meaningful businesses. Now, it sort of depends on what you're trying to build, right? If in my world, we need entrepreneurs who are going to build multi-billion-dollar businesses, right? They need to be excited about building a business that could be a public company and worth billions of dollars, because we're investing lots of money. We're trying to create big returns for endowments and those sorts of folks. So there are plenty of good little businesses one can create with apps, where you can build it on your own, sell it for $1 or $5, make good money. But in the venture world of venture-backed startups, there have been very few apps that have turned into big, interesting things. There have been games that have gotten very large. Those are tricky businesses because, while I'm currently still obsessed with Candy Crush and spend many, many hours on airplanes playing it, eventually you get tired of the game, and eventually you stop paying for anything. I'm maniacal about never paying a cent to Candy Crush. I'm just going to play through the free levels. But it's a tough business model. Instagram, different story. They created a network. They created a social network of people and a bunch of engagement around that. Same thing with WhatsApp. Same thing with Snapchat. These experiences that are uniquely mobile, that give you control and then create huge networks of people, those are businesses that have the capacity to be venture scale businesses. The rest of these things are really tough to make into big businesses. So that's my kind of, don't be a little careful about, I can create an app and I'll build a big business. It's hard to do. To your point about the Uberification of everything, I think that everything will be Uberified. I do think that in the end, services on demand are really valuable, that this capacity to use unused resources or underutilized resources all around is valuable. I think we're going to have an interesting challenge as people who are the service providers in this economy try and make a living and are increasingly squeezed by technology and the technology providers. And so, when you were making $18 an hour or $25 an hour driving for a Lyft or Uber, and suddenly it's $10 an hour or $7 an hour, and it's not a good business. And so we need to find this shared space where companies can enable individuals to provide services at a fair price, at a good price to consumers, so it's engaging, but gives them a fair living so that they want to provide those services. And that is across a range of things. And then the economics have to work. So, one of my favorite new startups in San Francisco, I'm not an investor, I'm a consumer, is a company called Lux Valet. You drive to the city, you pull up the app on your phone, and someone shows up where you stop and takes your car and parks it for you. And then when you're done with whatever you're doing, wherever you are, maybe it's where you dropped off the car, maybe you've gone to several other meetings and you land somewhere else in the city, you say, hey, bring me my car back to here, and they drive your car to you and they give it to you. And right now, they're charging $5 an hour for parking, so less than you're paying locally, a maximum of $15 an hour to park your car. It's a great deal. Now, the only question is it a business, right? I'll use it for sure. And I'd probably use it at $20, not even 15. But can you afford to hire people to come get my car, drive it off to some site where it's cheaper to park, get them, bring it back to me, cost effectively enough that you make money on my $15 while paying those salaries? And that's true of everything. It's the Uberification of delivery, the Uberification of IKEA furniture construction, whatever, you pick it. Are there real businesses? Are the individuals providing the service going to get paid enough to care? And is there enough margin that you can actually build a business in the process?
So there's a great article, I don't know if you've seen it, in The Atlantic just in the last couple of days about what really makes Uberification of all these different services possible. and good analysis is actually what the author says. I can't remember who wrote it. The author says it's not technology, because the technology is not rocket science, which I agree with. It is the fact that huge numbers of poor people are available to do services, deliver services at very cheap rates. And then he goes on to say this all was available in Mumbai many years ago. And it's true. You know, if you're in India, my mother calls up the grocery store, the bazaar, somebody will bring the fish at home, somebody will bring the vegetable at home, no problem, you know. This is a very different way of existence, a very different way of life that America is just discovering through this Uberification process.
Yeah. Well, and that's an interesting question, right? Is it bad news because it's creating this services economy of cheap labor being underpaid, or is it creating sufficient efficiencies that we can all get services we want from people who are going to get well paid for doing it because the efficiency is taken out, right? The efficiencies are created so that suddenly it makes sense to drive around in your car and act like a taxi, whereas before you'd be like, I can't get the customers, it's too expensive to insure, you know, I can't deal with credit card processing, all those things. So I do think technology matters, but you're right, and we have this, right, that you back to your cloud services thing, you know, one of the things that cloud services have figured out is that because it goes to the web and pushes away from you, the providers of the end product could be anywhere in the world. And so we have doctors and technicians reading MRIs in India. We have accountants who are doing work for you in other places around the world because they're very competent professionals in other places that are paid less to do the same services. Again, is that a good thing for the world economy? Are we able to bring up the standard of living for, you know, technicians in Mumbai who are reading x-rays, or are we just pushing down the price of everything and driving down the value of everything to the point where no one makes a good living anymore?
Well, this is the classic globalization debate, right? Things are great for those in the Philippines providing those accounting services, but things are not great for the people in America who used to provide those services at a completely different price point. That's what's going on. There is wage compression going on in America. There is wage inflation going on in India. This is the reality of today, and that's kind of economics. You can't fight that trend.
Yeah, no, it's true.
The one thing that I find very annoying, however, of what venture capital allows entrepreneurs to do is ignore fundamentals. And I think there is a very bad habit in venture-funded companies, including these Uberification stories, of ignoring fundamentals and delivering services at rates that are not sustainable. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's bad investing, right? I mean, in the end, all of these companies that have gotten funded have presented a business plan where people have said, oh, I get it, I think that at scale these things work, or if you have sufficient density work, whatever. There's always a theory that it will work. Now, maybe the theory in an up market like today is, don't worry about it, we get a bunch of users, we'll get value for those users, so ignore, you know, monetization and all of those things and just grow a big user base and we'll be fine. Now, it turns out that is true in a certain very, very narrow set of circumstances. Those companies that are massive, right? We're investors in a company called Wattpad, W-A-T-T-P-A-D, and it's a storytelling platform where people are writing stories, posting them to Wattpad, and then reading them on Wattpad, serialized stories about Harry Styles or whatever. So you can say, hey, look, we're not going to worry about when you start this app. Oh, we're not going to worry about it. We're just eventually we'll get to a sufficient scale that that we can monetize people, but we're just going to build a big business. Now, if you were to pitch that business that way today, I think people would say like, oh my God, how are you going to get to sufficient scale and all that stuff? On the other hand, right now, Wattpad is, there are tens of millions of people reading on Wattpad billions of minutes a month. So I can tell you today, Wattpad is of a scale where they have no problem monetizing, right? So if an investor at the early days of Wattpad said, don't worry about it, we'll get there eventually, just figure out how to create a great consumer experience, they would have been right. But for the first however many years, people could be sitting there going, what idiots, you guys are going to go out of business. You are making no money, you have a small number of users, and you're busy focusing on the consumer experience, right? So, so I agree with you. I think that it's important to have a view of a business where at scale or in an area or whatever, you can get to some to get to a business, right? And that means it has to be self-sustaining, right? You have to see somewhere in the future where you make more money than you spend. And if people are funding companies that they can't see that time, they can't envision a time where that company makes more money than it spends, they're dumb. They should not be funding those things. But if they see that out, but it's in year 7, and then you have to spend a bunch of money from year 1 to 7, then the only question is, do you think you can raise enough money to get from year 1 to 7? And that's the bet.
That's a big question.
Yeah, it's a huge question. And, you know, I have companies that go out of business as a result of that, right? That make that bet, and then it turns out in year 4, there isn't money to get to year 7. So right. It's the danger, it's the high wire act of entrepreneurship, which is, man, I need this thing to work, but I can't run out of money, but I want to build a big business, so I want to make big bets. And it's hard.
Yeah. You know, the concluding pointer I'm going to make for everybody on this topic is a piece that I just published, and it was in our newsletter this week. Will capital kill capitalism? And the question that I raised there is, we are, by putting so much capital into businesses, we are allowing entrepreneurs to spoil consumer habits. You know, if consumers kind of only expect things for free, like you said, Candy Crush, you're never going to pay for it. And I mean, me neither. I don't pay for Candy Crush kind of shit. But the truth is that consumers expect value for free. And that kind of destroys the basic tenet of capitalism, which is producers produce value, consumers pay for it to consume value. Now, if we destroy that basic relationship between producers and consumers at scale, then we are left with a welfare society.
Yeah, I think it misses a point, though, for what it's worth. You know, I spend a lot of time talking with people about business models. Oh, what's the business model? Are you approaching some unique business model? And when you dig into it, there basically there's only one real business model, and that is that you have consumers and they pay for things. Now, you're saying, oh, you give these things away for free, so that's not what's happening. Well, the reality is that there are proxies for paying for things, right? So we know one of those proxies, and that is that that advertisers pay for the attention of someone. So you get it for free, but you have to deal with advertisers. And it's explicit these days, because if you want to listen to Spotify without advertisers, you pay for it. And otherwise, advertisers get your attention.
Advertising business model works fine, except that you have to have scale to be able to monetize with advertising. Little shit doesn't get monetized very well through advertising,
yeah.
Right? But the danger that is being created is more on the freemium side. You know, freemium became a fad, and it's neither here nor there, and premium conversion rates are terrible. That's where I think the problem is getting created.
I agree with you 100%. I agree with you. I think that freemium is a bad, in the vast majority of cases, very possibly even Spotify, freemium is a bad business. Freemium is a bad model that results in millions of dollars being spent on a theory, and the theory is that if you make it free, it'll be easier to acquire customers, and then you'll be able to convert them, you'll be able to upsell them to some paying instance. It turns out that free doesn't make it that much easier to acquire customers, so you're not even getting the value of the free, and it's not that easy to upsell them to paid. So there are very few instances where the freemium model has worked, and in those instances, it's because serving your free customers costs next to nothing, right? Skype worked because the computer-to-computer communications were free. They used other people's resources to pay for it. When you paid, when you needed to get actual value by being out to the landlines, out to the POTS system in other countries, then you had to pay, and that worked, right? But Dropbox or Spotify or a bunch of these companies where it costs real money to serve the customers when they're free, it is a challenge to then get this model to work.
Dangerous. On that note, thank you, Dave. That was great. I'm so glad that you reinforced that point, because this is a point that comes up all the time. And I'm like you. I'm a strong believer in actually monetizing and not giving stuff for free. So I'm glad you reinforced that point. And it's a real pleasure to have you.
Thanks.
So we are going to get into the mentoring session. Dave is going to need to drop off. And,
thanks so much for having me.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
We're going to start the mentoring period, portion of the presentation with Chris Mondlane from Massachusetts, Cambridge, Massachusetts, my former romping grounds. Chris, are you on the call?
I am indeed, Sharman, thank you.
You're very welcome. Please go ahead. Tell us what you're working on.
Dat Venture has been sort of my baby for the last 3 months or so. So we're actually fairly new, but I wanted to present it to you guys and get some valuable feedback. So I'd like to start with sort of the story of how we got created and sort of move on from there. If you go to the next slide, and I'll get started. So my background was, and I'm myself very I like to consider myself a very international person. I grew up in Rome, New York, and London growing up as a child, and went on to study actually near Cambridge at Tufts. I studied international relations with a focus on international development. And upon graduating college, I started doing sort of business development roles, and it was only once I sort of learned to embrace the entrepreneurial bug that I really started dabbling in more of that. To give you a sense of where the idea for Dat Venture came from, this last Christmas, a Christmas ago, I was in Italy visiting family, and at the time and still, the economy was in kind of a shambles, to be honest. And at that point in my life, I'd already started immersing myself in the entrepreneurial culture in Boston, and it's phenomenal, and it's pretty mature at this point. So I went to look around in Italy, in Rome specifically, to see what kind of entrepreneurial ecosystem existed. And I was surprised and pleasantly surprised to find that there were sort of little pockets and clusters of incubators, accelerators that existed that showed real promise, I thought. And I said, well, wow, what if we could bring some of these startups that were already fairly ready for internationalization to come to the U.S. and perhaps grow their market size and grow into the U.S. market. I thought that could be really phenomenal sort of stimulant for the Italian economy. Fast forward, 7, 8 months, my co-founder approaches me about doing something similar in Spain. And so we got to talking, and that's where we sort of came up with the idea of really providing this gateway to the U.S. market. If you go to the next slide, please. So what we identified specifically, and we decided to start in Spain because that's where our network was strongest. And so we identified a couple of key trends that just a ton of companies were created as a result of the economic crisis, that there seems to be a great number of very skilled, highly talented people in these countries that simply couldn't find a job with the existing employment opportunities, and so decided to create their own companies. If you go to the next point, the venture capital ecosystem in Spain and a lot of these emerging companies is significantly less mature, let's say, than the U.S., they're about 10. Actually, we get told typically about 20 years behind in terms of their average the average fund size and the amount of resources that VCs are willing to commit. And then again, on a mobility side, we find that entrepreneurs in Spain are often reluctant to actually in emerging, I wouldn't say emerging markets, but in markets which are less mature than the U.S., where they've been hit by sort of economic catastrophe, that they're actually a lot of entrepreneurs haven't really thought about moving outside of the country to look for new opportunities. So if you go to the next slide, I think there's a couple points down. The next one again. Sorry, this was built in PowerPoint. So again, and one more, please. Thank you. And so what are the problems we have identified with these entrepreneurs? First is a sort of a lack of just general sort of know-how about what is the current best practices for entrepreneurship, and in that sense, leveraging a network that exists that can actually help you achieve greatness in whatever company it is that you're trying to build. These things really occur as a result of network advantages of having clusters of people that are happy to communicate and share information and knowledge. That was one of the key things that we identified as being an issue, as well as just if you have a great idea, how do you go about executing it? And this kind of knowledge has only really started to be communicated in the last 10, 15 years, and that's only if you've been in a program or been in a network again, which is aware of the sort of best practices that exist, and B, that is open enough, and you come from a culture that's open enough about talking about some of these more typically sensitive issues about how do you go about executing your company and executing your vision. And then we again identified the problem of the lack of access to capital in some of these countries, and beyond that, in terms of expanding to new markets, where do you begin? How do you build that beachhead in a new market? And then once you're there, how do you go about communicating to those customers? And that seems to be a huge challenge for entrepreneurs coming from one culture and seeking to establish themselves in another. If you go to the next slide, please. And so, what our solution was really is to, and I'm going to paraphrase some of these points, is essentially to build for foreign entrepreneurs. We really like to build a home away from home, and that includes living accommodations, office space, and something that will allow a founder who's looking to move into a new country to really sort of immerse themselves in that culture. The next thing is we prepare the companies with the founders with case studies that sort of outline sort of the goals, the mission of that company in the new market. We help them and we help them get around. On the education front, we provide founder-to-founder instruction. We've identified our own and mapped our own local ecosystem of founders, partners, providers, and we help founders think about designing their company using design thinking for longevity. And that's about sort of being the last company in whatever vertical they're competing in, and designing the company for that. Then we provide hands-on coaching, as well as some traditional learning from some local universities, which Boston is very lucky to have. Beyond that, we help the founders build a network that seems to be one of the largest stumbling blocks. And in so doing, we help them overcome some cultural nuances and really understand the differences in moving from one culture to another. We help them identify sort of who to trust. We vet anyone who we do business with, and where to go in terms of where are the little clusters of people that you want to meet. And then beyond that, the real reason why they come here is to go to market. And so we help them figure out, who could be a potential customer, a qualified lead, and how to sell to them. And then beyond that, again, one of the key points is fundraising for some of the R&D efforts or expansion. So, so our target customers, we've identified 2 key segments here that we're focusing on at the moment. And really, what we're trying to do more globally is support startups in their different phases of development. And so we focus both on just slightly pre-growth companies that need some time to just settle into, and pre-growth founders need time to settle into the new market and really acclimatize themselves. And then we have sort of more idea stage companies which are sort of just starting to get traction, and we're just starting to see metrics from them. If you go to the next slide, please. And so what we've done essentially is help map, for Spain at least, we've mapped, the entrepreneurial ecosystem there, which enables us to really identify who are going to be the key channels for us to find these founders that have, particularly promising ideas, and how can we identify these channels and focus our efforts on finding those more likely successful entrepreneurs. And so in the next slide, so this was one of our pilot cases that we had over the last 3 months, Up to Down. So Up to Down is actually led by a team of hackers, and I don't mean hackers in the sense of they'll break into your computer and steal your information, but more in the sense of they've played with the concept of, in this case, so essentially setting up a repository to help organize knowledge around applications. And so they've built this platform which now gets roughly 40 million visitors a month and 30 million downloads a month, which is pretty phenomenal by anyone's standards. But in exemplifying sort of what it is that we're doing, they were very much hidden in a corner of Spain. And when we found them, it was really this sort of revelation of, wow, there are some great companies that are out there that are just waiting to have the right opportunities. And so if you go to the next slide, Evolvelo, which is a particularly innovative company, very, very young still, but they are making a solar-powered, billion-float solar-powered bicycle vehicle, right? And are well on their way to establishing the first, one of the first crowdsourced hardware transportation projects, which is pretty phenomenal again, and hidden away in some corner somewhere. So we really want to bring these companies like these out. And our first cohort in February, which we're expecting, is full of these. So we look forward to presenting the U.S. market with those. If you go to the next slide, and so I know we're running low on time here. So what do we do that's different from the traditional accelerator? Well, one, we're really designed around the entrepreneur and not so much the whole team. We're really trying to build founders into great leaders and great innovators. The second point is that we are really providing a structure that has an educational component, which is sort of like the hands-on, practical learning experience that we think entrepreneurs, founders really benefit from when, especially practicing when they enter a new market, because they really sort of get to learn about the nuances and how to adapt to that new market sort of immediately without wasting much time. And then, as opposed to the traditional sort of boutique firms that help companies abroad fundraise, we have this 3-month-long program that really immerses that founder in the culture in the local ecosystem, which is very different from a lot of these road shows that get set up from these boutique firms that will just sort of bring you around for a week or a month or so, and they come back home and they feel, and we found this from research, they feel really like they didn't achieve their goals. And so if you go to the next slide, which may be 3 slides down or 3 clicks down. And so our business model, what we decided, how do we start to generate revenue, was through through so we've basically created two programs. One of them helps these entrepreneurs acclimatize themselves to the local markets. That's a 3-month-long program. We're calling that Venture 1. For that, we charge a fee of $10,000, and that is for the 3 months, and that covers everything from flight, accommodations, desk space, to the curriculum, and covers the cost of our fees. So for that, we actually don't get significant margins. We just do okay there, and the reason why we structured it like that was so that we could encourage the startups to join the pipeline. It would be much easier for us to identify who they are, and that period of time is really more about building our trust with the clients, as well as building the clients' overall comfort with the new market. Then we have Dat Venture 2, which helps scale whatever business has already been validated and looks very promising, and either needs funding or needs to recruit, and/or is looking for an exit. So for that program, we charge a monthly fee, a monthly consulting fee, and a success fee in the event of some kind of exit. So that is actually how we decide to.
Chris, I think we're going to stop listening to you. I'm going to give you some feedback because we need to move on to the next presenter.
Sure, no problem.
There are lots of problems with your business thesis.
Okay.
And I have written extensively on this topic, so I'm going to give you some pointers for you to go read.
Fantastic.
The first one I'm going to suggest you read is my Harvard Business Review article, The Problem with Incubators and How to Solve Them.
Mm-hmm.
Then there is a whole series of articles that I've written recently on my blog, and those are all, there's articles on what is the problem with a 3-month accelerator. The equity structures is the article called How to Raise Seed Money from Accelerators, and what that covers issues about equity structures. So if you're recruiting entrepreneurs who are coming from an accelerator or an incubator in Spain that has already charged them 10–15% equity, you're going to charge 10–15% equity on top of that. The company's cap table gets absolutely screwed up. So there's a whole treatment of that subject. There's a whole treatment of the subject of what is a right, for an accelerator, what is the right success metric. And the vast majority of accelerators treat funding as a success metric. That is an issue. You should read up all of that on each of these topics. There's also a video on our YouTube channel, Why Mentoring Networks Do Not Work. You should take a look at that.
Yeah, so, just to clarify, we actually don't take any equity at all. That is precisely why we charge the fee. But thank you again for those points. Those are really great points.
And then the other issue that I see on this slide that you have on the screen right now is that startups are not going to pay you huge amounts of monthly consulting fees. So, and frankly, even $10,000, you have a very difficult time to get them to pay. So those are my feedback. You can, you'll have the recording of this session available. So if you need to listen to it again, you can. But I have just given you a whole bunch of pointers, which I suggest you go, explore.
No, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. All right, Nitin Digaukar, you are up next.
Yes, am I audible?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'll start with the basic thing about our organization. Home Buyers Combine, as the name suggests, is an organization that is built by me for the mission of offering a level playing field for the home buyers. We are simply building clusters, and it's a bottoms-up approach. I started this organization in 2011. Before that, a brief introduction of mine is I have worked in different corporate organizations for about a couple of decades after my engineering and MBA from Pune. Started with European multinational in high-tech engineering, moved to Coca-Cola company, and then UB Group, then got into Infosys. And while in Infosys, I had a large team working with me, counting to about 1,000 people. And then I observed that young working class individuals are facing huge exploitation when they are buying houses. You would be aware that in India, people are very much looking to buy houses in clusters of apartment complexes. Having worked in Coke and UB, and before that as a global procurement representative of Atlas Copco, the Swedish multinational engineering organization, I had always seen that the value engineering concept works in everything. When I worked on these value chain of real estate, I found that it's a top-down approach where developers make nice projects, display all over, and then individual buyers from market flock it. However, as the developers have very large component of financial costs, because when the land is to be purchased, there is no finance available from banking or other finance sector, and they have to borrow money from funds or from ultra high net worth individuals at costs like 30 to 40% annually. Ultimately, these costs are paid by the buyers. On the other hand, with this pressure, they have to sell the projects competing with others with huge marketing spends. So these two non-value-added costs that are marketing and finance, how it can be, if not eliminated, can be mitigated, is what I worked on. And I observed that there is substantial latent demand because all these projects eventually get flocked by the buyers. So then that is how the idea of home buyers combine emerged. The first project, actually, as you have said, I have rather bootstrapped with my paycheck. I actually created about a couple of 100,000 revenue while in job, and then I actually got out of my well-paying job, which was out and out buying profession for me. As far as the business is concerned now, having cumulative $1 million revenue earned so far, we are looking to grow now. We have ambitious plans, but as rightly it was said in the keynote address, I am indeed fired by the mission to solve this problem of exploitation of individual buyers who are nowadays in their early 30s or late 20s and who have really not exact experiences of buying something which costs them half of the earning of their lifetime, or if not half of the lifetime, half of the earning of lifetime, half of the earning of half of their lifetime.
Nitin, what is currently, you said you've already earned $1 million in revenue for this business. What is the structure of the business? Is it an online platform that you use, or is it you have consultants working with these buyers? How does the business operate today? Where is the $1 million in revenue coming from?
I think I must clarify, it is a cumulative revenue since inception that we have churned. It's not annual $1 million revenue.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what is your annual revenue?
Platform. I beg your pardon?
What is your current annual revenue?
My current annual revenue is about $250,000.
Okay. And what is the business model? How are you generating that revenue?
Well, that is following in this particular presentation. The next slide, I think, should be the revenue model.
Okay.
What we are charging fees 0.5% of the property value to the buyer and 3%, up to 3%, I would say, to the developers. 0.5% is for the buyers because we are doing due diligence, architectural as well as legal for the buyers, and we actually amortize that cost for all the buyers in the given project. Whereas the developer, when he is able to get the cash flows in a very expeditious manner, he is relieved from very high component of cost of finance and the entire component of cost of marketing. So whatever the cost of marketing is there, a majority of part is taken by us, and about 15% of the total project cost, which is towards finance cost, that is passed on to the buyers. So in this manner, we have handled now about 400 buyers in group buying, where individually people have saved about average 16% of the cost as compared to the market.
Okay.
If we can go back to the previous slide, what I was talking about. Yeah, now what we are talking about, see, nowadays, every individual depends a lot on social media, even for making critical decisions. When people are around, not necessarily all of them are looking for buying houses, but there are so many people in around who are looking for buying houses in the given area, and that latent demand is never collated by anyone. On homebuyerscombined.com, it's a 1-minute registration, and thereby we are actually collating information and bucketizing them into the groups. And then we are building the clusters, pitching for the projects which are there in market, or we are initiating the projects with retail developers who have strength in given locations. What we are looking to do now is, with this, I had appointed then Grant Thornton after getting some money to do survey, and I found that in 7 top cities in India, the transactions of real estate are close to 1.5 trillion rupees for new house buying. However, the cost of, or rather spends on marketing are only rising in terms of mere percentage. It has slowly moved and it is going up to 5%. So 1.5 trillion, 5% is the real estate marketing industry today. And it is actually simply revenue leakage for them, which is ultimately burdened over the buyers. So there is a better solution to this, which improves their cash cycle. And on the other hand, for individual buyers, they are able to assert themselves. Real estate is not regulated or organized industry. There are no entry barriers. And therefore, a lot of nexus of politicians, not very right kind of bureaucrats, or even underworld is there in that. Whereas if we are having the organized, institutionalized buying, individual buyers will be less vulnerable. I won't claim that we are going to immune them completely, and that's what we have experienced in our projects. Now what we are looking to do is, I want to expand this business in top 7 cities in India.
What city are you in now? Right, your 250,000 a year is coming from Pune?
Yeah.
Okay. But I imagine
of course,
is a lot, the available market in Pune is a lot bigger than 250,000, right?
Yes, it's a lot bigger.
So instead of expanding into 7 cities in India, I would first actually build your business to a much bigger scale in Pune, wouldn't you?
Well, there are different angles to this. Having worked in consumer goods industry with the brands like Kingfisher Beer and Coca-Cola, what I have seen is that if we have to have the largest standing, today we have certain difficulties while we do these projects. With some good developers, yes, we are able to have a smooth ride, but we are vulnerable too because of our size. We want to attain a winning formula where we are formidable in size. We are able to have a reach.
Size by spreading yourself thin.
No, we are not talking about just spreading thin. What we are talking about is building a bigger brand around us. And if we have to do that, we have to use, kindly hear me out where I am actually coming from, and I will be very happy to know all the kind of points that you are telling me about. What I'm saying is, the way we adopted a strategy that we will be able to create a company which has annual revenue of $50 million if we are able to do the right kind of branding. And that's what we have actually stated in the strategy, that we want to have a formidable standing in market. We want to have more and more people. And I want to go one step further, that we also have the non-binding financial company license with certain size of our equity and things, whereby we are able to ask people to pay up their own contributions, because in India, 80% of the home loan and your own margin money of 20% is how everybody in working class buys houses. these money of their own, which keeps lying in different instruments, instead of that, if we are able to pull up, we are able to give them substantial returns in far efficient manner. We are not able to do that at this point because of various limitations in terms of regulations. And people also not necessarily would trust in the manner that people have trusted when we have done on a smaller scale through one-to-one connect. And therefore, what we are looking to do is go big bang with substantial spread. It may be seen on one side as spreading thin, but if we are able to build a brand and we are able to have the home buying fund arrangement.
We are running out of time. I'm going to have to need to do one more presentation, so I'd rather give you some feedback.
Great, thank you.
I think I understand where you're coming from. However, you cannot go big without, crossing the steps that are involved in going big. I'll answer your point number 4 first. You're kind of the idea of going big is coming from your assumption that you can get outside investors, venture capital, to finance your going big, but that is not a viable scenario right now. Based on what you've presented here, venture capitalists are not going to fund you. So you're going to have to get to a certain amount of scale and validation of your business model, a scalable business model that can then become a billion-dollar business. That's, if you can present that thesis, that investment thesis, then venture capitalists would be interested. I haven't seen that in your presentation. I have no reason to believe that that thesis exists in your shop yet. You have to create that thesis, and in the meantime, you still need to grow. So you need a strategy for growing without venture capital, and you need to understand how to formulate your business such that you may be able to attract venture capital if that is something that your business lends itself to do, and you need to learn how to do that. And right now, given the fact that you do not have access to venture capital, your growth, in my opinion, should be in Pune, and you need to figure out how to grow in one city, block by block, with organic growth. And if you want to raise venture capital, you need to learn how to put together an investment thesis for venture capital. And if you decide that you want to use 1M1 and to learn how to do that, we'll be happy to teach you. But as it stands, you're not in a fundable situation. You need to create that fundable situation.
I got you. Thank you.
Okay? Yeah. So that's the gist of your story currently. Without funding, you're going to need to grow in Pune and prepare yourself to see if you can raise funding.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right, Raghu, you are up next. Bright.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you, Shama. Hi. You guys can hear me fine?
Yes, please go ahead.
Awesome. My name is Raghu Kopale. I'm the president and CEO of InnoBright. At InnoBright, we are transforming the animation industry by dramatically improving the speed and quality of rendering. If you could go to the next slide, please. So the problem we're trying to address is the problem of rendering speed and quality. Mm-hmm. The animation industry acknowledges, actually we want to stay back on that slide if you don't mind. The animation industry acknowledges that rendering is a bottleneck step in creating any animation project. It's a very time-consuming and dollar-consuming step. As an example, an extreme example, a Pixar movie takes about $200 million of budget, of which 25% of $50 million goes into rendering, which is one of the reasons why it takes about 3 to 4 years to make a movie. But that's an extreme example. There are smaller projects, which are TV shows, etc., that take shorter time cycles to finish the projects, but rendering is a pain point throughout the entire animation industry, whether it's for commercials or whether it's for VFX, visual effects, or movies, etc. The current technology is slow and expensive. It's based on the traditional what's called Monte Carlo method, and that's being used by all the rendering software makers, and that's the underlying ray tracing technology that everybody uses. And it has some inherent disadvantages, and that's what we address with our filtering technology. Please go to the next slide, thanks. So here's how our solution works in a nutshell. The current technology, which is Monte Carlo, if you were to render about 2 hours for a pre-visualization image, which is slow and expensive, as I mentioned, you get something on the left that you see that we call it slow, but it's the reference image, let's call it. And if the same current technology, if you were to run for 10 minutes, you get what's in the middle, which is a noisy image. And with InnoBright technology, which adds on to the existing technology, and if you were to run for 10 minutes, you would get the reference image in a fraction of the time. So it's not just the speed, but the quality that the artists are looking for. Why are they valuable? We improve the speed up to 10x for pre-visualization and 2 to 3x for final rendering. It translates to, for an extreme 3-4 year movie project, it translates to about 4 months of time savings. And then we reduce the cost by 54%, which is about $25 million spread over 3 to 4 years for a movie project, so about $8 million a year. And we integrate seamlessly into the workflow. If you could kindly stay on that previous one, sorry. We integrate seamlessly into the workflow of the animators, so they don't have to learn something completely new. And we integrate it with all rendering software and existing hardware, which is only CPU and GPU. So we are sort of hardware agnostic. We latch on, we are an add-on plugin framework that works with the existing rendering software that the animators use. Next, please. So our prospects, we went through an accelerator program here, the first commercial accelerator in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I actually lived in the Bay Area for 15 years and moved here for personal reasons. And before I went back to the area to work with the incubators or accelerators there, I found out that there's one here. So we finished a 10-week program. We interviewed, followed the Steve Blank's lean launchpad method or model, and we talked to about 75 customers. And I call them prospects at this point because the beta cycle is starting in the first week of January. So there are some big studios up in Seattle and Northern Cal that are very interested in participating, and these are the testimonials from them. Next slide, please. So we only have time to scratch the surface on one of the market segments. That's why circles are here, the animation visual effects studios. But we know there's a big market, the gaming companies, what I call here automotive, but it's actually commercial. 9 out of 10 auto ads that you see on TV are visual effects simulated. And they're architectural engineering firms. A&E represents architectural engineering. So all these market segments we have not even validated or talked to enough customers. Just the animation studios and visual effects market alone is $600 million, and overall market by our calculation estimate is $1.5 billion a year in US alone. And this is all the spending that we do today.
Raghu, animation studios, $600 million. Does that mean that you have revenue potential of $600 million, or there's $600 million worth of animation software being sold out there?
So this is the $600 million they're spending on rendering. So this is the rendering spending, which is the market we're targeting. This is not all the spending that they're doing. All the spending that they're doing is in billions and billions of dollars. But we focus on what they're spending, what we can save basically for the animation studios. Clarify, okay. The competition is status quo. Existing, they have like the Pixars and the DreamWorks of the world have big render farms locally on campus, and they keep adding more expensive hardware, 8 CPU servers, etc. And they have to buy licenses for the rendering software. So the status quo is to add more servers, which is the primary competition for us, or work with their existing rendering software providers to do one-off-point solutions, which takes a long time. So we address this completely by understanding all the rendering pain points and integrating the quality requirements for all the scene types and sample sizes in our software. And we work on existing hardware that our customers have without them having to spend additional hardware. Whether they're using CPU or GPU, we work with them. And our secret sauce comes from evaluating the 2 of the best algorithms in the world and integrating into our product. We actually are licensing the algorithms from universities. So our business model is straightforward. The larger customers, we want to do direct marketing. I talk to them on a personal basis, do the free trial. I apologize for that question, premium versus free trial, but free trial is what we want to go with those guys, however long their beta cycle is, and then after that, do an annual licensing. Now, during our minimum query with the customers, we found out that they want the savvy customers who have their own custom renders, they want a standalone version of our product so they can integrate the code into their existing render. So that's one category. And the second category is people who are using the existing GUI-based workflow, CDS Max, whatever they use, Maya with Mental Ray or V-Ray render. They just want us to be part of in the background with minimal configuration and use with their workflow. So that's the category number 2. And the third option that we want to evolve to over time is a SaaS model where we become like a Zinc render and become an online rendering software as a service. So everybody else, the medium and smaller customers get web-based marketing and server-based annual licensing. Next slide, please. This is our team. Myself, I have over 20 years of experience in telecom networking, working for imaging and video compression companies. I'm a Cal Berkeley and Columbia alumni, MBA, and then my partner takes care of he's a Singapore, Bangalore resident. He takes care of the Asian customers primarily. He's also an alumni of US and work for multinational companies. We have 2 advisors locally here in Albuquerque. One is a strategy advisor, CTO of a company called Queenergy, and one is an industry expert, Pivot VFX, and he's the one, Aaron Estrada, who's worked at Sony Imageworks, DreamWorks, and all the big studios. We have the 2 professors who are the technical inventors and advisors from algorithm performance perspective, so we stay on top of. So we're also bridging the commercialization aspect of state-of-the-art research and trying to bring it to the rendering world, if you will, rendering at the studios. And I have about 3 part-time developers that I don't show here that I'm trying to convert into full-time through. We just actually this week closed a small seed round with our accelerator. They decided to do a follow-on investment with us. So. We had that standard pre-seed $20K for 6% situation with our accelerator, and we've done well during the program, so they decided to do a follow-on investment. That's one of the big points. One of the strategies we wanted to do is raise Series A early or look for a 3-year type of an investment, but we changed our fundraising strategy to raise a much smaller amount, get to a point where we bring up our valuation, have the sign-up, the beta customers as paying customers, etc. So in summary, I started with speed and quality, and I lead the word speed. We have a strong exit potential. We have exclusive access to patented technologies, 2 patents issued and 1 patent pending. Enormous market, which is we want to prove through our beta cycle and then say that the actual savings are true and the market size is in fact true by doing further validation on the remaining market segments that we have not validated, experienced team that can execute and deliver, and dramatic performance improvement, as I mentioned, 10x improvement in pre-visualization speed and 54% in cost savings. With that, I thank you for the opportunity.
What is your question?
So I need help. So once we start this beta cycle with the 12 beta customers that we have signed up, ranging from larger studios to medium, we want to actually validate that the market TAM that we estimated, it was very difficult, those 600 million numbers that you saw, to come up with, because it's the actual spending or savings market we truly are targeting for our customers. And it was not easy we went through a lot of reports, market research reports, and we could not qualify that A. And we want to actually quantify that exactly through our beta cycle. And also prioritize, one of the things with the big movie studios is they take too long to go through the beta cycle, evaluation cycles, and a long time for the decision making. And for us, we want to look at the shorter sales cycle customers, or the commercial guys, who have to finish a commercial project in 3 to 4 weeks, and they see the benefit right away by improving their speed of rendering. And we want to focus on those customer segments, so kind of validating and prioritizing validating the market size and prioritizing the customer segment. And then our value proposition, of course, is it 54%, is it 60% truly their savings? It's a ballpark number, so that's one. And then last but not least, I need help with the fundraising strategy, because we went back from not trying to raise seed to do a seed round and at which point we have to probably raise a bridge loan in between, etc. So the whole fundraising strategy over the next year or so.
So my read is your TAM model is not accurate, and until we have a clear TAM model, I don't think you would be able to raise funding. So why don't you listen? I'm going to cover right away, actually, right after this, how 1M works, and you can decide if you want to use the program.
Okay, that sounds like a plan. And okay, absolutely.
And you can ask. We will have some time for Q&A after that as well. So, folks, those of you.
In fact, we think that the numbers are conservative, actually, but they could be actually a lot larger.
Not a question of the number. Your model is wrong. You need to learn how to do bottom-up TAM analysis and model bottom-up TAM.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
We see this all the time. Somehow or the other, TAM modeling is something that entrepreneurs have a very hard time doing. So we teach that extensively and fully.
Okay. Great.
It's a very commonly encountered issue in dealing with entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I mean, we think we did the top-down, and I'll talk to you offline or send you the information.
Right now, please, can you please stop, because I want to cover the segment. We are out of time. We have 9 minutes left to cover all the things, so I don't have time to do more. So for those of you who are here, if you like what we are doing, please refer serious entrepreneurs into 1M1M. And the reason we're looking for serious entrepreneurs is that there's a lot of fly-by-night people, kind of gold diggers, so to speak, in the industry right now. They think that they're buying a lottery ticket by starting a company, and that's just not how startups or business building happens. There's a lot of work, many years worth of work, serious commitment that goes into building businesses, and we are looking for the entrepreneurs who are interested, who are committed to putting in that kind of work to really build a business, not the fly-by-night lottery ticket type of entrepreneurs. All the resources that we've brought together to support entrepreneurs are accessible through our website at 1mby1m.com. You will find a very active blog, and in the conversation with Dave Hornik today, we referred to some of the case studies that you would be able to find on the blog. We also have a very extensive Entrepreneur Journeys book series, which is, the format is all case studies and analysis and synthesis on specific topics related to entrepreneurs. So we have bootstrapping, positioning. These are, methodology issues that we use extensively. Bootstrapping using services, bootstrapping with a paycheck. These are all methodology guidance. We have a book focused on women entrepreneurs, that's Feminine Feminism. We have a book focused on India, that's Seed India. We have e-commerce to Web 3.0, that's focused on the e-commerce vertical, Carnival in the cloud, focused on the cloud vertical, and so forth. So the next book coming out in January is $1 Billion Unicorns, same format, case studies and analysis synthesis. So this is a very good starting point for you to kind of get an entry into the program at a very, very, nominal price point. Then we have, on the site you'll find tons of material, lots of videos, lots of content. These roundtables happen every week, almost every Thursday. So the next couple of weeks are holiday weeks, but most of the year, all year round, we are here doing these sessions with you and trying to help you move one foot before the other. And we try to point you to where the issues are, and to the extent possible, we give you pointers on how to address them, but also, it's not really possible for us to give you lectures, hours and hours of lectures to address those issues all the time. Like, for instance, the TAM issue or positioning issues, these come up all the time in these discussions. As we look at businesses, we very quickly figure out that, okay, if you solve this particular issue, then, that's going to take care of one of the problems with the business. So that's, diagnostic stuff we can do very easily at these sessions. actually teaching you how to solve those problems are harder to do, you know, in these little 2-minute, 5-minute kind of discussion segments. However, we do have extensive offerings to address all your knowledge gaps and skill gaps in the process of business building in the program. So aside from the public roundtables, the free roundtables, we also have the premium program, which is extensive methodology guidance on all core topics that you would need to address. We have a very strong curriculum that helps you learn these issues. We help you with business development. In some of the segments, we have incredible networks. In fact, we were just listening to Raghu's animation idea. We have tremendous contacts in the animation and, you know, gaming industry. Strategy consulting, we have similar platform, private roundtables, private versions of a similar roundtables where we actually do strategy consulting in the premium program. We also help you with financing. We help you with diagnostics on financing. We help you with strategy. We help you with mechanics, you know, getting your pitch deck together such that you are not going to get rejected out of hand. And then, you know, introducing you to investors as you get all your material together. And then finally, we help you with getting coverage in the media, which is a very important part of getting a business out there and building credibility around it. People need to encounter you in the media to develop social proof around your value proposition. And it's very difficult for small startups to get any attention from the media until you have big financing announcements to make. So the $1 Billion Club is where you will find case studies of successful entrepreneurs who have hit $1 million or beyond in annual revenue in our program. We have an ROI analysis of the program in the link that's on your screen, quantifying one-on-one value equation. We provide $375,000 plus 5 to 10% equity worth of value for just $1,000 annual membership fee and no equity. The equity structure is something you need to pay a lot of attention to. If just by bouncing around from accelerator to accelerator, you give up 30% of your company, follow-on investors really hate that structure. So please be very careful about what you're giving up to get the help that you need to build your business. We give you lots of orientation material on 1M. You will be able to find that on the website. The self-assessment is a questionnaire that I would request all of you to kind of calibrate your businesses against. These are questions that you should ask yourselves. It's important that you answer these questions because every investor is going to ask you these questions, and I think of you as an investor in your own venture, so you should ask these questions of yourselves as well. There's a ton of material on the website to evaluate the 1M premium program, so go to the premium program section, what to expect from the premium program. All these are areas, sections on the website that help you evaluate the program. We have tons of video messages, video FAQs. Case studies of several hundred successful entrepreneurs. We've had over 600 successful entrepreneurs who have come to our forum, shared their journeys, their advice, their strategies, what has worked, what hasn't worked, and we have stitched all this up into a really efficient, powerful curriculum that is that is delivered in video lectures and case studies. You can do it at your own time, at your own pace. It's one of the most powerful curriculums in technology and technology-enabled services, early-stage entrepreneurship out there. Nothing like this exists anywhere in the world. You will have 7 core topics in the core curriculum: bootstrapping, positioning, market sizing, customer validation, financing, customer acquisition, and team building. And then you have a bunch of electives that are aligned with various areas where there's a lot of entrepreneurship going on: Web 3.0 e-commerce, cloud computing and business solutions, outsourcing and consulting, mobile and social apps, healthcare, IT, online education, gaming, etc. We even have, one for women entrepreneurs. We have an elective module for billion-dollar unicorns, and so forth. Our methodology is lean, capital-efficient, bootstrap startups. This is important because even if you want to raise money, you will have to bootstrap your way to a certain degree of validation. You have to do your homework. You heard Dave say today is that you better do your homework before meeting someone like Dave, or he's not interested in talking to you. You should be able to answer all the questions that he will be asking. And we know what are the questions that a person like Dave would be asking, and we will prepare you for that. But that phase, when you are preparing, you're going to need to bootstrap that phase. No one's going to finance that phase. If you go to our press page and click on coverage of 1M premium members, you'll get a flavor of the kind of coverage we generate for our entrepreneurs. We also give you access to extensive amounts of social media channels that we have leverage on. We have huge presence in Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, our blog, and we let you use those channels to propagate your messages and get you the word out there about what you're doing and your offerings. If you're doing an entrepreneurship development organization, either through media or through a local organization, you're welcome to become a partner of our program. And in January, we have pretty much free roundtables every week. We're going to adjourn for the holidays in December, but in January, we are back full force, and we look forward to having you participate. We are very close to a big milestone of 250 roundtables. Can you imagine? That's a lot of roundtables. Vision India 2020 is the last book that I want to refer to, which is a book that I wrote a few years ago. It is an ideation book, and it uses India as the framework, but you can apply many of these ideas to any of the emerging markets. And I've kind of written it as business fiction, as if we are sitting in 2020 reflecting on building these businesses. It has a lot of strategic nuances already fleshed out. The Incubator in a Box is a platform that we use to empower other companies, large companies, mid-sized companies, governments, other investors, and academic programs to either launch or extend the capabilities of their own incubation or acceleration programs. So we have a lot of partners in this area using our Incubator in a Box platform. As you heard today, Carnival in the Cloud is the book that we were doing this event around, but we also have Bootstrapping with a Paycheck and From E-Commerce to Web 3.0. These are the 3 books which we have launched this fall. All of them are available on Kindle. And I see a question about bootstrapping using services. I recommend that you look up the book. It's available on Kindle, Bootstrapping Using Services. It doesn't cost that much. You should go read up on the book, and it's a very, very comprehensive treatment of the subject. Okay, folks, we're kind of out of time, but since we're going to be off for a couple of weeks, I'll spend a few more minutes to check if any of you have questions. Either you can put your question up on public chat, or you can call in. Is anybody interested in asking questions? I have a question here, Ankit Verma, who has a software that he wants to promote. To promote your software, you're going to need to be part of the 1M program. We will not let you promote anything unless you're part of the program. Satish Gunda is asking for testimonials for the premium program, and Maureen has given you a link to it. You are all set. Akshat, you should look up the Bootstrapping Using Services book. Anybody else? And Daksh P is calling in. Okay, please do. While Daksh is calling in, let me introduce you to Irina Patterson. If you have questions about the 1M program, you can call her. Her phone number is 786-301-2456. Her email is irina@1mby1m.com. Skype ID irina_Patterson. If you want to talk to her, I suggest that you email her and schedule a time to talk. The chances of you being able to catch her live would be higher that way. Daksh, you're on the call, yes?
Hello, is it Shamana?
Yes. Can you please?
Hi, Shamana, this is Daksh here.
Yes, Daksh, can you put your computer on mute so that you don't stream echo into the call? If you're speaking
is it
to the phone,
still echoing? Because it's on mute.
All right, perfect. Go ahead.
Okay. Hi, thanks for the session. Shamana, we are an IT services startup. And my question was, while the premium program would obviously be beneficial in multiple aspects, I was wondering if from a services company point of view, would we be able to get help in terms of business development if we are a premium member?
We have plenty of services companies in the program. Yes.
Okay. I think that's the only question I have. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Merry Christmas.
Okay, Merry Christmas. Everybody, happy holidays. Have a wonderful time. All of us are entrepreneurs, right? So we have to work very, very hard during the course of the year. So it is important also for your mental health and well-being to also recharge batteries. So now is a good time of the year to connect with friends and family, eat a lot of good food, maybe gain a few pounds that you will lose across the rest of the year next year. But do try to enjoy yourselves and put some oxygen in your brains so that you can come back full force in January, and we're all going to get back in action. We are still working in the next couple of weeks, but certainly not at the same pace that we work at for the rest of the year. And hopefully you'll too be able to take a little bit of time off and enjoy. Bye, everybody. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.